morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to our weekly review of how religion impacts humanity. This week's headlines. A Vatican judge charges a cardinal and 9 others with financial crimes. Polish bishops pledge to pursue their commitment against sexual abuse. A Milwaukee Archbishop complains it's the church that is continually targeted. Cattle thieves were lynched in northern India. A Pakistani cop kills a man who was acquitted of blasphemy charges. A French teenager's anti-Islam rant unleashed death threats. Now 13 are on trial. A rabbi declares science nonsense and urges religious studies instead. Hobby Lobby advocates for a Christian-run government in Independence Day ads placed in many US newspapers. The Methodist Church allows same-sex marriage in a momentous vote. And Pastor Locke goes crazy. There's quite a lot of Roman Catholic news this week, so I will put you in the capable hands of our Roman Catholic correspondent, Jason Sylvester.
I'm Jason Sylvester, aka Diogenes of Mayberry, bringing you this week's Vatican Scandals. The head of the Congregation for the Causes of Saints and 9 others were charged by the Vatican with crimes including embezzlement and abuse of office. In keeping with my previous reports on the Vatican history of being above secular law, it reports the Vatican's criminal tribunal will prosecute. In a related above-the-law issue, the Wisconsin Department of Justice has asked to see more of the church's internal case reports of sexual abuse, and the Archbishop of Milwaukee, who holds secular and canon law degrees, whines the church is being unfairly targeted. Hey, where there's smoke, there's fire. And speaking of sexual abuse, Poland this week released a report on incidents there. An Al Jazeera article states this is only the second time that Poland's Catholic Church has released such figures, the first time in 2019, only after pressure to do so. Several problems with these figures. 1, it's taken decades for the Church to release them in the first place. 2, the Church failed to explain how 42 clergy members who appeared in both the 2019 and this week's list in what appeared to be a case of repeat offenders were dealt with. 3, the lack of transparency extends to how the Church investigates abuse complaints. 4, of the 174 cases in the 15 to 17-year-old age bracket, 80% were not reported to the police. 5, an institution that continues to divulge only limited information proves that it cannot be trusted. And this same institution is currently refusing to collaborate with Poland's state inquiry into child sexual abuse, which has had trouble obtaining information from the Church. As in all my previous reports, the Vatican clings to its self-declared belief it is above secular law based on its own propaganda. And the situation in Poland is more evidence of the same. The Church commits the crime and undertakes to investigate it behind closed doors. And that's this week's coverage. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Jason. Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Kaul announced this past April that it was heading up an investigation into alleged sexual abuse in the state's Catholic diocese and at least 3 religious orders. The review would begin in the Wisconsin Department of Justice. Requests for files and documents from Catholic dioceses and religious orders began, and in early June, the Archdiocese of Milwaukee announced it was pushing back against the Wisconsin Department of Justice's request for archdiocesan files. According to Archbishop Listecki, the Attorney General's plan to review abuse cases in the state indicates an unfair targeting of the Catholic Church in Wisconsin. This isn't the first time that the Archbishop has challenged Wisconsin state officials for singling out the Catholic Church. At the beginning of his tenure in Milwaukee, he took issue with the way that Wisconsin's lawmakers was seeking to make an example of the Catholic Church regarding the sexual abuse of minors. On January the 12th, 2010, only 8 days after taking the helm, Archbishop Listecki testified against a Wisconsin Senate bill that proposed to indefinitely extend the statute of limitations for sexual contact with a child. At the time, and currently, under Wisconsin law, those claiming to have been the subject of sexual contact by a member of the clergy have only until they reach the age of 35 to bring suits against alleged assailants. We can't ignore the injustice of targeting the Catholic Church, Archbishop Listecki said, as reported by a Wisconsin newspaper at the time, during the hearing held by the 2010 Wisconsin Senate Judiciary Committee. In 2011, the Archdiocese of Milwaukee filed for bankruptcy, eventually paying out a $21 million settlement to 330 abuse victims and setting aside $500,000 to underwrite therapy for abuse victims and their families. Now, there's been some more peculiar goings-on in Pakistan, shown in green in this map, and in India, which is shown in orange.
5 people were killed for transporting cattle in 3 different states in India in the past 1.5 months. Cows are worshipped as divine in India, and eating beef is banned in most of the states. 3 men carrying cattle were lynched by villagers in the northeastern state of Tripura. The victims were 28-year-old Zaid Hussain, 30-year-old Bilal Mia, and 18-year-old Saiful Islam. The villagers found the 3 men with 5 animals in a vehicle. The mob stopped the vehicle and attacked Zaid and Bilal, while Saiful managed to flee. Saiful was caught later and beaten up. The victims were taken to a local health center and later to a hospital in the capital city of Agartala, where they were declared brought dead. No one has been arrested yet in this connection. In a separate incident, a 25-year-old man was killed and another person injured in the Rajasthan state, where Hindu right-wing activists stopped a truck in which they were carrying cattle. The mob attacked the 2 men transporting bovines to another state. The mob assaulted the 2 people with sticks and other weapons for around an hour before the police arrived. One of the men died in hospital. The 2 men had come to Rajasthan to buy bulls for agricultural farm work. The dead person has been identified as Babu Bhil, and the injured person has been identified as Pindu Bhil. The police have taken 8 suspects into custody in this regard. Babu is survived by his wife and 2 children. In another incident, a 55-year-old cattle trader was shot dead while 6 of his companions were injured in Uttar Pradesh state in the first week of June. The men were carrying cattle. The police seized the vehicle and recovered 6 cows. The victim was identified as Sher Khan alias Shera. The police said no weapons were recovered from the injured men, but 2 cartridges were found in the vehicle. The police have not identified any suspect in this case. The victim's family said it was a powerful cow protection activist who killed Sher Khan. In the meantime, a high court recently asked the Haryana state government to explain what authority cow vigilantes have to raid citizens' houses. The high court said such actions are illegal.
Father Felix Anthony, spokesman for the Catholic Church in northeast India, told the news that the incident could be related to the defeat of the Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP, in the election to the Tripura Tribal Areas Autonomous District Council, where the local party won. Cow vigilantism gained widespread attention when Mohammed Arklak, a Muslim farmer of Dadri in Uttar Pradesh, was lynched for allegedly possessing beef in his house in September 2015. However, laboratory tests proved the meat was not beef. Minority groups in India say that since the pro-Hindu BJP party came to power in 2014, such incidents have increased. The BJP plays divide and rule politics. It tries to polarize whenever and wherever it can. Dividing people in the name of caste and creed is the hidden agenda of the party, and the latest incidents cannot be ruled out as having some connection with it. Meanwhile, a police constable in Punjab province killed a man who had been acquitted of blasphemy charges when the High Court overruled the lower court's decision. The report stated that the deceased was originally sentenced for sharing blasphemous sketches on social media, but he challenged the lower court's verdict in the upper court and was acquitted. But Constable Abdul Qadir then took the law into his own hands. Rana Muhammad Ashraf said the Constable Abdul Qadir was a fresh recruit in Punjab police and was under training. He told the British News that the accused surrendered shortly after committing the murder and further investigations are underway. The police officer said that Qadir had been planning to assassinate the man since 2016 and had waited years while the man was behind bars. Also on Wednesday, an anti-terrorism court in Sargodha sentenced a man to death for killing the manager of a bank over blasphemy allegations. A French court handed down suspended prison sentences to 11 people who were found guilty of harassing a teen girl over her anti-Islam videos published on social media. The prosecutions came after she was forced to change schools and accept police protection pertaining to the threats. According to her lawyer, Mila, who recently turned 18, received over 100,000 threats, including death and rape threats, misogynist messages, and hate comments for her homosexuality, which she revealed on social media. Mila's videos were first published in 2020. Since then, the schoolgirl has triggered a debate on the extent to condemn religion. While supporters have called for an increased right to expression and blasphemy, critics have called out Islamophobia and deliberate provocation. It is imperative to note that while Mila started by declaring that the Quran is a religion of hatred, she told the jury during her trial that it was not only Islam, she hates every religion. The court in Paris tried 13 people from several French regions aged between 18 and 30. They were all charged with harassing Mila, with some of them sending death threats, including asserting that she could have her throat cut. In his judgment on Wednesday, one of the defendants was acquitted for lack of proof, while another was released due to a procedural problem. The remaining 11 were handed suspended sentences, meaning that they will not serve time in jail unless they are convicted for other offences. France has been subjected to increased terror attacks over the past year and has attracted flack for its Islamophobic sentiments. Last October, President Emmanuel Macron had spoken about a fight on Islamist separatism. Later, he made more controversial statements on the killing of teacher Samuel Paty by a Muslim student over the Charlie Hebdo cartoons of Prophet Muhammad. Praising Paty as the face of the Republic who believed in knowledge, that he was killed because Islamists want our future, and that France will not give up cartoons, that's attracted widespread criticism. In Israel, Chief Sephardic Rabbi Yitzhak Joseph was furious over the new coalition government's plans to diminish the influence of ultra-Orthodox Jews by depriving them of the generous cash handouts they've grown accustomed to receiving, and by drafting their young men into the military. He called on ultra-Orthodox youth to shun the education ministry's core curriculum of maths, science, English, and other key subjects, which he described as nonsense. He said, "I myself, did I study the core curriculum? Did I finish school? To this day, I do not have a diploma, no matriculation certificate. Did I miss out on something? It's nonsense. The main thing is our Torah." Over the past decade, Haredi parties have become staunch allies of the recently ousted Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In return, they have enjoyed a monopoly over several issues of domestic policy related to religion and state, including control of the schools, as well as exemption for their young men from Israel's mandatory military draft. Rabbi Joseph has a history of incendiary remarks, including calling on Orthodox Jews to prevent their children from spending time with secular relatives, including declaring that non-Jews should be forbidden from living in Israel, and comparing black people to monkeys. He also compared women who do not dress according to religious modesty standards to animals. His late father, former Chief Rabbi Avadia Joseph, stated that Hurricane Katrina was God's retribution for American support for the 2005 Gaza disengagement, and that Gentiles were born only to serve us. They see the new Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, as a bad guy, a heartless and immoral politician defrauding them out of their rights. On Independence Day, Hobby Lobby ran an advertisement in many newspapers across the country that advocated for a Christian-run government.
The full-page ad featured 3 columns that misquoted former U.S. presidents and other historical figures, as well as Supreme Court rulings about Christianity. Misquoting George Washington, the ad reads in part that it is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, to obey His will, to be grateful for His benefits, and humbly to implore His protection and favor. In a holiday message posted to its website, Hobby Lobby said they'd been placing holiday advertisements since founder David Green felt commissioned by God to make them, after he saw advertisements during the 1995 Christmas season. Some who saw the ad were upset at the call for combining church and state. On Twitter, commenter Terry Blunt wrote, quote, "A full-page ad by Hobby Lobby appeared in newspapers today, ignoring the separation of church and state. I never will set foot in a Hobby Lobby which believes America should be a theocracy." End quote. An Oregon resident who saw the ad in the Register Guard called it absolutely frightening and encouraged people not to shop at Hobby Lobby. Hobby Lobby has been entangled in a number of controversies recently. In April 2020, Hobby Lobby closed all its stores nationwide and furloughed employees after it was caught defying coronavirus-related state lockdown. Then, quietly reopened stores across the country. In September, shoppers called for a boycott against the company after an image went publicly viral showing a display inside the store of decorative letters arranged to read, USA, vote Trump. It's not clear in how many newspapers the advertisement ran or how much the ad cost. Hobby Lobby did not respond to requests for comment at the time of publication.
In the UK, membership of the Methodist Church peaked at 841,000 way back in 1910. Then it halved to 425,000 in 1990. From 2006 to 2016, membership further decreased from 262,972 to 188,398. In 2016, there were 4,512 local churches in the denomination, but following the 3 years to 2019, the decline continued to under 170,000 members and just 4,110 churches. This week, the Methodist Church has resorted to unprecedented measures to slow its decline. It has become the largest religious denomination in Britain to permit same-sex marriage. A vote to change the definition of marriage at the Methodist Conference on Wednesday was overwhelmingly passed by 254 in favour with 46 against. Freedom of conscience clauses mean that ministers will not be forced to conduct such weddings if they personally oppose the move. Church officials hope the first same-sex weddings in Methodist chapels will take place in the autumn. The Reverend Sam McBratney, chair of the Dignity and Worth campaign group, said it was a momentous step on the road to justice after many years of painful conversations. Some of us have been praying for this day to come for decades and can hardly believe it is here now, he said. We are so grateful to our fellow Methodists for taking this courageous step to recognise and affirm the value and worth of LGBTQ+ relationships. We reassure those who do not support this move that we want to continue the work and worship with you in the church we all love. In an emotional debate, Carolyn Lawrence, a former vice president of the Methodist Conference, warned that there was a significant minority of Methodists who were planning on leaving or resigning their membership as a result of the vote. Same-sex marriage is still not allowed in the Church of England or the Roman Catholic Church. However, it is welcomed in the Scottish Episcopal Church, the United Reformed Church, and the Quakers in Britain. Some of you may have seen the antics of Pastor Greg Locke on social media. This week, he excelled himself. See this video.
God's about to bring the whole house down, ladies and gentlemen. These bunch of sex trafficking mongrels are about to be exposed. These bunch of pedophiles in Hollywood are going to be exposed for who they are. I don't care what you think about fraudulent Sleepy Joe. He's a sex trafficking, demon-possessed mongrel. He's of the left. He ain't no better than the Pope and Oprah Winfrey and Tom Hanks and the rest of that wicked crap. God is going to bring the whole house down. I said he's going to bring the whole house down. He's going to burn the whole thing to the ground. He's going to expose all these bunch of pedophiles. I'm telling you, he's going to expose Kamala Harris for the Jezebel demon that she is. I don't know why pastors don't talk about this stuff. Well, I do. They don't want to seem crazy. I'm already crazy.
Stay tuned on this channel for the live Q&A show Free Thought Hour with Tim Hull from Dealing with Deconstruction. That should be fun. Starts in a few minutes. We will be back with our weekly news review on all our platforms at the same time next week. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, set the notifications, etc. Thank you for watching.